Oh, train me not, sweet mermaid, with thy note to drown me in thy sister's flood of tears. Sing, siren, for thyself, and I will dote. Spread o'er the silver waves thy golden hairs, and as a bed I'll take them and there lie. And in that glorious supposition think, he gains by death that hath such means to die. Let love, being light, be drowned if she sink. Mermaids have permeated language, myth, cultures across the world, part human, part fish, able to live underwater, to charm with song, and with an incessant wish to draw humans down below to join them. Sometimes benevolent, sometimes not, they flitter in and out of human consciousness, in poetry, tales, oral tradition, plays, and films. With time, theories as to their origins have surfaced, along with the fables and fairy tales. Yea, slimy things did crawl with legs upon the slimy sea. Aquatic apes. The ancient Greek philosopher Anaximander theorized that mankind had originated in the sea. In 1960, marine biologist Sir Alister Hardy suggested that early humans descended from an aquatic species. The aquatic ape theory claims that early humans spent a good deal of time in and out of water, and that this might explain why humans became hairless, have a tendency to webbing between digits, and so on. This could be further supported by the existence of a common ancestor, the axolotl. This endangered species is recognized as a long-distant relative of humans, with 4 limbs, digits, and in some cases, red hair or furry gills, and blue eyes. And 1,000 slimy things lived on, and so did I. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. There's one other proposed explanation for the origin of the mermaid myth. The free women divers of ancient times, adept and powerful swimmers, who dove into the depths for pearls or sponges. In Japan, for example, female divers have believed to have been active for around 2,000 years. Did seafaring vessels from other countries perhaps sight these swimmers and mistake them for magical fish humans? Did tales of the divers' prowess spread by word of mouth, embellished along the way with a good dose of imagination? Meanwhile, Pliny the Elder, in between his naval duties, found time to write in his encyclopedia about tritons and nereids and sea elephants. A deputation of persons from Elisipo that had been sent for the purpose brought word to the Emperor Tiberius that a triton had been both seen and heard in a certain cavern, blowing a conch shell and of the form under which they are usually represented. Nor yet is the figure generally attributed to the Nereids at all a fiction. Only in them the portion of the body that resembles the human figure is still rough all over with scales. For one of these creatures was seen upon the same shores, and as it died, its plaintive murmurs were heard even by the inhabitants at a distance. The legatus of Gaul, too, wrote word to the late Emperor Augustus that a considerable number of Nereids had been found dead upon the seashore. Pliny the Elder, Natural History, Book 9, Chapter 4. Literature on mermaids is worldwide, and what is interesting about the stories is what they have in common. Half human, half fish, with uncanny powers of sea, wind and charm, at once enthralling and perilous. They often marry humans, either living on land, or taking their human partner to live with them underwater, as happens in the Mermaid. Then folks tell the following story, which, according to them, accounts for a singular carving on a bench end in their church. Hundreds of years ago, a very beautiful and richly attired lady attended service in Zeno Church occasionally, and now and then she went to more of that also. Her visits were by no means regular, Often long intervals would elapse between them. Yet whenever she came, the people were enchanted with her good looks and sweet singing. Although Zeno folks were remarkable for their fine psalmody, she excelled them all, and they wondered how, after the scores of years that they had seen her, she continued to look so young and fair. No one knew whence she came nor whither she went, yet many watched her as far as they could see from Tregarthen Hill. She took some notice of a fine young man called Matthay Trewella, who was the best singer in the parish. He once followed her, but he never returned. After that she was never more seen in Zeno church, and it might not have been known to this day who or what she was but for the merest accident. One Sunday morning a vessel cast anchor about a mile from Pendower Cove. Soon after a mermaid came close alongside and hailed the ship. Rising out of the water as far as her waist, with her yellow hair floating around her, she told the captain that she was returning from church, and requested him to trip his anchor just for a minute, as the fluke of it rested on the door of her dwelling, and she was anxious to get in to her children. Others say that while she was out on the ocean a-fishing of a Sunday morning, the anchor was dropped on the trap-door which gave access to her submarine abode. Finding on her return how she was hindered from opening her door, she begged the captain to have the anchor raised that she might enter her dwelling to dress her children and be ready in time for church. However it may be, her polite request had a magical effect upon the sailors, for they immediately worked with a will, hove anchor and set sail, not wishing to remain a moment longer than they could help near her habitation. Seafaring men, who understood most about mermaids, regarded their appearance as a token that bad luck was near at hand. It was believed they could take such shapes as suited their purpose, and that they had often allured men to live with them. When Zeno folks learnt that a mermaid dwelt near Pendower, and what she had told the captain, they concluded it was this sea lady who had visited their church, and enticed Trewella to her abode. To commemorate these somewhat unusual events, they had the figure she bore, when in her ocean home, carved in holy oak, which may still be seen. From Traditions and Hearthside Stories of West Cornwall by William Bottrell, 1873. To this day, locals of the area claim that the voice of Matthew can still be heard on quiet nights, and that if he sings with a high voice, the waters will be calm, but if he sings with a low voice, the weather will be rough. There is an ancient oaken chair, dating back to the Middle Ages, with a mermaid carved into one side, holding a mirror and a comb. It is called the Mermaid Chair. According to local law, the carving depicts the mermaid of Zeno, more that this was the very seat she would sit on when attending church. Cornwall is a land of pixies, giants, ghosts, river goddesses, and mermaids, the legends of merfolk being so plentiful that many Cornish families claimed ancestry from these sea people. The best-known legends include the mermaid of Lamorna, who sits on a rock, combing her hair and singing to lure sailors to the depths of the sea, never to be seen again. To see her means an approaching storm. To hear her sing as well predicts a shipwreck in precisely 7 days. Why 7 in particular remains unclear. The sandy beach of Seaton was once a busy fishing town. One day a fisherman insulted a mermaid. Perhaps he tried to steal her comb or mirror. Whatever the cause, she took umbrage and cast a spell over the town, causing it to be swallowed up by the sands. Then there's the Doombar, which in the past was a busy harbour and safe haven on an otherwise rocky coast. Once a local man proposed marriage to a mermaid, unaware of her origins. She refused, and apparently in a fit of pique he took aim and shot her. Understandably annoyed, she dove into the sea, then reappeared, presumably at a safer distance, vowing that the harbour would become forevermore a cursed spot. soon after a great wind blew up the sand into a huge bank, which became the Doon Bar, causing havoc and many shipwrecks thereafter. About 12 years ago, when I was a parochial schoolmaster at Ray, in the course of my walking on the shore of Sandside Bay, being a fine warm day in summer, I was induced to extend my walk towards Sandside Head, when my attention was arrested by the appearance of a figure resembling an unclothed human female, sitting upon a rock extending into the sea and apparently in the action of combing its hair, which flowed around its shoulders and of a light brown colour. The resemblance which the figure bore to its prototype in all its visible parts was so striking that had not the rock on which it was sitting been dangerous for bathing, I would have been constrained to have regarded it as really an human form, and to an eye unaccustomed to the situation it must have undoubtedly appeared as such. The head was covered with hair of the colour above mentioned, and shaded on the crown, the forehead round, the face plump, the cheeks ruddy, the eyes blue, the mouth and lips of a natural form, resembling those of a man. The teeth I could not discover, as the mouth was shut. The breasts and abdomen, the arms and fingers of the size in which the hands were employed, did not appear to be webbed, but as to this I am not positive. It remained on the rock 3 or 4 minutes after I observed it, and was exercised during that period in combing its hair, which was long and thick, and of which it appeared proud, and then dropped into the sea, which was level with the abdomen, from whence it did not reappear to me. I had a distinct view of its features, being at no great distance, on an eminence above the rock on which it was sitting, and the sun brightly shining. Immediately before its getting into its natural element, it seemed to have observed me, as the eyes were directed towards the eminence on which I stood. It may be necessary to remark that previous to the period I beheld the object, I had heard it frequently reported by several persons, and some of them persons whose veracity I never heard disputed, that they had seen such a phenomenon as I have described, though then, like many others, I was not disposed to credit their testimony on this subject. I can say of a truth that it was only by seeing the phenomenon I was perfectly convinced of its existence. If the above narrative can in any degree be subservient towards establishing the existence of a phenomenon hitherto almost incredible to naturalists, or to remove the scepticism of others who are ready to dispute everything which they cannot fully comprehend, you are welcome to it from, dear Sir, your most obliged and most humble servant, William Munro, 1797. There were an increased number of witness accounts made over the earlier part of the 19th century, and despite the development of zoological science, these have continued into the present day, to such a degree that National Geographic created a mockumentary, complete with its own fairly convincing mermaid body. Mermaid sightings have been recorded throughout history to the present day, some more detailed than others. The schoolmaster William Munro had his encounter off the north coast of England. Across the world in the Caribbean we have: the upper portion resembles the human figure, the head smaller in proportion, sometimes bare, but oftener covered with a copious quantity of long black hair. The shoulders are broad, and the breasts large and well formed. The lower portion resembles the tail portion of a fish, is of immense dimension, the tail forked, and not unlike that of the dolphin, as it is usually represented. The colour of the skin is either black or tawny. The animal is held in veneration and dread by the Indians, who imagine that the killing it would be attended with the most calamitous consequences. Governor van Battenberg, at the island of Berbice in the Caribbean, 1801. Thou rememberest, since once I sat upon a promontory, and heard a mermaid on a dolphin's back uttering such dulcet and harmonious breath, that the rude sea grew civil at her song, and certain stars shot madly from their spheres to hear the sea maid's music.